Welcome back to the Game Crafter, and today we're taking a look at a little game called Goblin Slayer. So, welcome back to the Game Crafter, everyone. I'm Rocky, this is Rocky Reviews, and as I mentioned in today's component review, we're going to be taking a look at a game called Goblin Slayer. Now this happens to be the third edition of Goblin Slayer that we're going to be looking at, and it's produced by a company called Digital-Eel. Now on the website it'll say Let's Play Games, but they've recently changed that to Digital-Eel. Now the game was designed by Richard Carlson and Iikka Keränen, I got that right. The character artwork was done by Denis Loubet, and the board art and the box art was done by Ramirez. Now this game was published in 2011. It plays two players. It's a two-player strategy game, tactical strategy, where you're playing a hero against a horde of goblins. And it plays in about 30 to 60 minutes, give or take. It's a pretty broad range, and once you get the hang of the game, it's closer to 30-35 minutes. And it's for sale right now on the Game Crafter for $49.99. So you can go check that out because we'll obviously have the link in the show notes below. So let's have a look at the components for Goblin Slayer. Alright, as you can see here, I've got the components laid out. And one of the cool things that I always like is, it always draws my attention first, is the custom punch-outs. Because it shows something that the Game Crafter can do for you and your prototypes that you won't often get to see in other places. And that's being able to do these custom cardboard punch-outs, which, to be honest, is a pretty substantial cost savings against something like miniatures. But these are the punch-outs. They come with the standees, and I wanted to show you what a large sheet of punch-outs looks like. Now, obviously, this one's already punched out, but this is the sheet that it came out of, to give you an idea of the size. Right, so it's a decent size. It's a little smaller than an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. That's basically what it is, right? 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you can do all forms of punch outs on there, and anything the laser can cut, you can cut. And one of the things you want to be careful with punch outs is that you don't get them overly detailed. You don't want too many little nooks and crannies, simply because when you punch them out of the sheet, they'll tear, right? So be careful about that. And if you're doing custom punch-outs, like in this case where we've got the goblin here, you're going to want to worry about what they're standing in. And in this case, we've got the card stands. And the game comes with enough card stands for all the pieces, of course. But I want you to notice something about these card stands. These have a fairly tight grip. They're fairly, they're good. They're stiff card stands. But when you're putting stuff in them, don't just cram it into the top of the card stand. If you do that, you're likely to peel the paper off the model. So if you hold these card stands by the edge, push, and then put it in there, it goes in really well. Okay, just check on that sometimes. So we've got these nice thick chipboard models we can use, nice little miniatures, and this lets you have some really high fidelity artwork, really nicely done artwork on all of these. Now this comes with a bunch of the goblins and of course a cave troll. No fight with goblins would be complete without a cave troll. Okay? And the idea of this game is you're going to play one of these two heroes. Now these heroes are Stormbeard the Dwarf with his player card, or you can play Morel. Now Morel's a sorceress and she's effectively part of the advanced game. She came in later, so she's part of the advanced game. Morel gets her own set of these cutouts, these tokens. Her magic missile, effectively her dart, her pile of fish, and her stones where she can collapse one of the tunnels. So these will be used by Morel for her spells. And of course, she gets the poker deck, the deck of cards showing her stone to fish spell. You can make up your own spells, or her wizard's prick. Rockfall, which is what these are used for. These two chits here, right? So she'll use the deck of cards, right? And you only play one hero at a time. That's why you've got Stormbeard or Morel on the character card itself. Now the game mat and the game board, and I've mentioned this in a few other videos, this is done with these mats. Now these happens to be the large hex mats. This is the center tile. You'll notice that on the center tile, all 6 edges are open for tunnels. And then there's also an entrance tile when you do the setup. If you can see here, there's a set of doors on the entrance tunnel. That is where the hero will enter. And these 2 hexes are considered outside the tunnels, which is important because the heroes are trying to get in and grab the shiny stone, the shiny widget, and some of the hero stones. Now the hero stones, these are using the gems. They do 3 blue and 1 yellow gems from the Game Crafter there, which are, these kind of gems are they came out when Pente came out a long time ago. And they become so popular as game chits and game pieces that everybody carries them. And the Game Crafter has these nice high quality ones, these high quality glass gems. So this is the treasure you're trying to get in and retrieve, the yellow one. And then the Goblin player will place 2 of these blue gems somewhere in the maze on hexes that you can retrieve. And you get to start with 1. Now these gems are spell stones. And what you can do is you can use these spell stones to do extra powers, basically. For example, in Stormbeard's case, he can use it to add rolls to his die to try to kill the troll or extra attacks and things. So the game will start with the center tile and the entrance tile facing the hero player. I'll move these around a bit because you can see that the game board actually can get quite big when you play it. And using these mats, these hex mats, gives you an inexpensive alternative to board. But by making hex mats, you can also reconfigure the board in many different ways, as opposed to a normal chipboard game board, which is going to be the same every time. Now, that's not a bad thing. There are some of your games that need to be the same every time. But when you have hex mats, you can arrange them in many different ways. Do keep in mind that all the Game Crafter components can be printed double-sided in this case. So you could print more on the back of them. And I mean, it was potentially a missed opportunity to not add different tunnels and stuff to the back, which would have given you a lot of variation. But consider that when you're using, you need a game surface or you need a map or something like that. Instead of potentially using a rolled up vinyl map or a fixed game board, consider using mats, right? Because I really like that idea for flexibility. Now, you will have noticed also this tunnels token. So the game is pretty cool in that when you run out of goblins, you don't actually run out of goblins. As goblins are killed, they go into the reserves. And during the goblin player's turn, there will be a goblins appear phase where they can put a goblin on these holes. Make that a little easier to see. These holes are the tunnels that the goblins are in, and you can put a goblin there during the goblins appear phase. So they can basically get reincarnated and continue to swarm the bad guy, or the good guys in this case. Bad guys if you're the goblin player. So they come back again and again. Now, when you set this up, you can choose 5 goblins and a troll or 6 goblins. You have to kind of min-max that a little bit. But the troll effectively counts as 2 goblins. And Stormbeard or Morel have to kill him basically twice because he counts as 2. Now, he can also be used in a cluster of goblins to take an extra hit. So one of the goblins doesn't get killed, but it's pretty slick. I like that idea. And, I mean, every time you've got goblins, you have a cave troll, right? They just go hand in hand. And ironically enough, the goblins usually seem to be the smarter ones. So, in this 3rd edition, there are 2 small booklets. There's the primary one called The Quest that has the rules and all the information for Stormbeard in it. All of his info is in this book. And then the other book is the advanced rules that includes Morel. Now, Morel's a little harder to play. She's a bit more squishy. Because she's a sorceress. And in any good fantasy game, magic users are always more squishy than dwarven fighters, right? So they made good use of these booklets. And I think me being the age I am, I had to, my arms are getting too short to necessarily read small print up close. But the graphics are done well. I like the way it looks. It kind of got the goblins in the background, the stains and stuff. But you'll have this setup. This small book is all you need to play Stormbeard. And if you do decide to play Morel, you'll look at the 2nd book to find out what her spells are and things. Of course, it comes with dice. The dice are used for combat. Movement's fairly simple. The hero can move 1 space, any direction, and attack with the dice, or 2 spaces during their turn, which is pretty standard in a lot of games. And of course, they used the large Pro Box. Now, remember, one of the cool things about the large Pro Box from the Game Crafter is that it's a telescoping box. So it has the white sleeve you can see there inside the box. And that actually gives it a lot of support. And it makes it so the box is lighter than a normal sleeved telescoping box that you may see for other games. But there's a lot of landscape here that you're able to use for extra text, information about the game, and then, of course, your back of box print. I think people should take advantage of the back of the box more. I mean, the back of the box, you've got a lot there, and it's going to be eye-catching. If you order a bunch of these and they're on a shelf, or you have it at a convention, or you're doing prototypes, use it as your sign. Consider using it as you can stand it up and draw people's attention to it. So really take advantage of printing the back of the box. The other thing that these guys did, and that I've always been a fan of, I always like, is that they put linen finish on things. So, like, the box has got a linen finish on it. The cards, these cards have a linen finish. And that feel, that tactile feel of a linen finish, and these are the standard, blue cord stock from the Game Crafter I've always been fond of. That linen finish just gives it that little extra touch. And linen finish doesn't cost that much to put on these components, but it gives it that kind of next level quality for a game that I always enjoy. And I'm sure a lot of you would too. So consider doing that on your game cards. And then everything's UV coated. And as we've talked about before, UV coating is fantastic. And the other thing is that if you're going to do something like this, where you have your own custom spell card and you want people to be able to write on that, if they're using the vis-a-vis markers or something, which are markers like this, the vis-a-vis markers are water. You can erase them with water. They can create spells on here that can change with the UV coating. If it's not UV coated, that's hard to do. You don't get that dry erase effect. So consider putting UV coating on stuff if you want to be able to let players write on them. So that's basically the components for Goblin Slayer. It's a nice little game. It's a quick game, little skirmish combat game. I like the idea of the way they did the expansions. They add a book and the back of the character card, and they're good to go. That was very slick. And of course, really high quality components from the Game Crafter. It's as good as any. I really enjoy that. So, thank you for watching. As always, make sure you click that bell, Click the subscribe button if you haven't before, and the bell will let you know when we publish new videos. While you're down there, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, give us a like on the video, show people that you support indie games and the Game Crafter. So I've been Rocky for Rocky Reviews, and as always, make awesome things.